guys, welcome back to Anime Rewind, the podcast where we go back to the beginning of an anime and dissect it episode by episode. I'm Brian, and I'm joined here by James. Hey James, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, and today we're talking about the second episode of Durarara, entitled Highly Unpredictable, which is it's a good title, because Durarara is highly unpredictable.
Yes, very suiting for the series.
And we start with the opening ceremony, which I work at a Japanese school, so I've been to the opening day ceremony. They're very long and boring, and all the students are sitting there. We see Mikado, we see Kita, and then we see a third girl, some glasses girl whose name we don't know yet, and the camera angle is kind of checking her out, but then we see that it's actually a teacher on stage is checking her out.
Right, yep. In classic tropey anime fashion, we have the creepy pervert teacher.
Right. One thing, this episode's got narration like they all do, but we actually don't know what character is narrating at this point.
Right, but it is a female voice.
Yeah, so next we see the classroom, where in the class we've got Mikado and Kita, the glasses girl from the opening ceremony, the kidnapped girl, and to go with my theory about the blurred out characters, nobody in the classroom is blurred out, even the completely inconsequential, no-name characters we don't know. They're not grayed out, so, apparently whoever is narrating this remembers them all.
Right. We also see this new student, Seiji Yagami, who shows up quickly just to, let everyone know he's never coming back to school again.
Right, I love this. So he comes to school in his school uniform just to say, I'm not coming to school.
Right. He wants to leave school forever, but he wants to do it in the right way, so he's very formal.
Drama queen. He just wants everyone's attention, He's like, I could just drop out, but I could drop out and get everyone to talk about me at the same time.
Right, you gotta drop out in style. He also looks like he might be 30 years old. I don't know if you thought that was strange, but everyone else looked a lot younger than him, I thought.
Right, yeah. He's also got like a very serious affect and voice, so it adds to his old manedness. And they're doing the roll call, and there's one student who isn't there also. A girl student is named and isn't there, and the glasses girl looks a little upset about that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, Mikado is not in the main character seat. He is in not the last seat all the way to the right, but the second to last seat all the way to the right. So.
Oh yeah, that is weird. I didn't even think of that.
I don't know if it means anything. Maybe they're just trying to say, like, yeah, he's an important, but he's not the main character. There's no main character.
Yeah, that's possible.
I think they left that seat open, to send that message, maybe. Or maybe they didn't do that at all, and I'm just reading too much into it.
Right, so it seems like after that, this episode kind of, it dives into Rio's story.
Right, she starts, the same narrator starts telling the story of Ria. We see her up on top of the school roof texting somebody, and just a side note, I've been to a lot of Japanese schools through my job, and I've never seen any kids hanging out or eating lunch on the roof. If that happens, that's cool, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, that is something that happens quite a lot in anime.
Yeah, it happens all the time in anime. If it happens in real life, I've never heard about that. But yeah, she's this is the story of the kidnapped girl Rika, and she's going through some personal problems, isn't she?
She sure is. So we see the character that we saw in the last episode, the one with the coat, and he kind of steps out of the shadows, and he says, like, hey, the coast isn't exactly clear, so we know that he was viewing the whole situation between, the Black Rider and all of that.
Yeah, so we see her get kidnapped again, then we see we only saw his shadow before, but now we actually see him, the jacketed, shadowy figure who Izaya, and I guess if last episode was introducing, the protagonists, maybe this episode is kind of introducing our antagonists.
Right.
So we start to see the backstory of kidnapping girl and why she went to commit group suicide, right?
Right.
And her story, so her dad's having an affair, and someone's trying to, you know, stick it to her dad and send incriminating photos of him in an affair to the house. And his daughter, kidnapped girl Rio, she keeps opening the letters and seeing them.
Right. And so she starts to, you know, go into this kind of weird set of mind frame where she feels like, everything is fake because everyone in her family is doing the same things, but she knows this terrible truth behind it, and she feels like it's just going through the motions.
Right. So she eventually turns the evidence back into the mailbox so that her mom can find it, and her mom does find it, but doesn't react. And this whole plot line uh, reminds me of FLCL, the Fooly Cooley, the girl character whose dad was having an affair, and so she became all disillusioned and blasé also.
Right.
And what it also reminds me of, have you seen the movie 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams?
I have, yes.
So he also turns in photos of an affair to the spurned wife who sees them and then does nothing about it. So it
Right.
reminded me.
It's a reoccurring theme. um, so we see again, like, the Black Rider rescues the girl in the van, that same girl who is having all those issues. She's been talking to this guy, this mysterious person on the cell phone who she feels comfortable with.
Right. He seems to be going through similar problems. He says his girlfriend banged his dad, which, yeah, that's rough. But it's the voice of the jacketed guy from before, Isaiah, actually on his computer. And one thing, we see Isaiah's email, and he seems to have folders on there. 2 folders for Ikebukuro and Shinjuku, and then subfolders Westgate, Eastgate, Southgate, Kabukicho. So I don't know if that means anything, but it kind of seems perhaps like he's monitoring.
Like he's taking tabs on people in
Yeah,
certain
who's
sections.
coming and going. Yeah, exactly. Possibly. So yeah, we see a recap of the events of episode 1. The black biker moves out, takes out the kidnappers, and then we see what happened next, which is, she opens the door and finds the kidnapped girl inside.
Right. So the Black Rider informs her that she has, been instructed to transport her to a particular place. So she, drives her away to this building where she tells her that someone is waiting for her on the rooftop.
Right, but she can't actually talk. The headless part.
Right, yeah, she uses her cell phone, so she'll type in something and then she'll show it.
Yeah, and is she using an iPhone, I think? That's what it looks like.
Yeah, some kind of smartphone looking thing.
Okay, so yeah, she climbs to the top of the roof where we see Isaiah again. He's chilling out waiting for her.
Right, so he introduces himself as Nakura, the guy that she was talking to on the phone, and he claims that he had organized the whole kidnapping to illustrate that she really didn't want to die after all.
Right, and he promotes a sort of amoral relativism. He's like, "Oh, is your dad really so bad? Is your mom really so bad? Aren't you just kind of the same as them? Aren't we all kind of just like the same stupid humans?" Like,
Right, which is not a bad case to make, but he makes it in a very asshole-ish way.
yeah, and the reason he gives is kind of, that he just loves to see human drama, and that's why he incited her to suicide, and that's why he had her saved by the Black Rider, just because, he loves to see people in unique positions, I guess.
Right, yeah. He finds humans fascinating. So when he says that, do you take that he considers himself not to be human, or do you think he's just talking about humans in a general sense?
Yeah, I just think he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
He's just, thinking of humans as any other thing you might enjoy watching. But I believe he's human, and he his motivations remind me a lot of, like, in the very early parts of Naruto, there's a bad guy, Orochimaru, and he attacks the main character's hometown. And just the reason that he gives is like, the world's a boring place if nothing's happening, so I'm just doing this to shake things up, basically.
Yeah, he's basically just messing with people for his own amusement. Um, very, very much a sociopath. Um,
Right. It's like he launches into his whole reasoning, and then he kind of concludes by saying like, "Oh, but you won't commit suicide anyway, and I knew that, and that's boring, so I'm leaving."
right, yeah. So he's basically daring her to do it. Like he's trying to push all her buttons and make her jump. Um, he like shows her this blood splat on the ground. And he tells her that many people have jumped from this place before, and he kind of, even in one moment, he like holds her, like dangling her over the edge and saying like, "Oh, do you want me to let go?" And then he's like pulls her back on. He's like, "I knew it. You're just boring."
Right, and eventually she does jump.
Right. So he
Despite him, she jumps.
right, which I'm assuming is what he was hoping for.
Right,
Um,
that was his plan all along. That's nothing he said so far has really been on the level.
so she takes the dive, and we see that black shadow magic come in that we always see when the rider is around, and it like creates like this spider web of shadow energy, and
Right, she gets saved by Black Suit Venom Spider-Man.
right, exactly. And so after she gets saved, she asks the black rider. She says, "Why did you save me?" And she holds up her phone, and it says, "Because life is worth living," or something to that effect.
Right, the fan sub translated it to like, the world isn't as bad as you think it is.
Right.
And then we see Uzziah. He's perched somewhere to watch this, and he's not. He seems really annoyed and disappointed. And really quickly, just like in a flash, there's a kanji for 3 etched into the concrete, and he takes a knife and he changes it to 4, implying that this is the 4th time he's coked someone into jumping off the roof.
Right, and they talk about that after, the Black Rider asks him, did you coerce the other people that have jumped here as well? And he denies it, and when I watched it, I watched the dub, and there was no subtitle on that kanji, so I didn't know what he was carving in there, but
Right.
that is like kind of definite confirmation that, yeah, he did coerce those people to jump and kill themselves.
Right, which makes him like, I don't know, in the eyes of the law, but in my book, he's definitely a murderer.
Yeah, he's a villain, and that kind of actually bothers me. Like people think Isaiah is like this, like cute character, and they like,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like it's not cute to be a sociopath. That's my feelings on it, anyways.
I honestly I had forgotten the events of episode 2, and so I used to have like a much softer view of him, and
They
just
definitely do try to soften him up as the series goes on, but
he's actually a serial killer.
right, yeah, it's kind of hard to take that terrible thing away that he's done.
So Durarara is an anime about like life in the city and coming to terms with unexpected things, and but it's also very much an anime about the internet and the power of the internet and communities that go on in there. And honestly, I think what Uzziah is, he's like a super evil internet troll. He basically trolled Rio rather. He trolls her into committing suicide, which that's a thing that actually happens on the internet. People get trolled so hard they commit suicide.
Right, it's like for him it seems like there's excitement in being able to manipulate people. It's very similar to how people like coerce people to kill themselves like on a forum or something like that.
So, as you said, he denies any like involvement to the previous jumps to the Black Rider, and he says, "I'm just an innocent information broker,"
Right.
which is a cool like fantasy job. I don't think it's
That's
the
no.
closest
That's
thing
definitely not a real thing.
closest thing would be like a private detective.
Right.
But He's an information broker, which I think is cool. There was also an information broker in Bakano, so that's a recurring theme in his work, and I think it's a cool idea, an information broker.
Yeah, it makes for a good villain too. It's a good profession for a villain to have.
Right. Although in Bakano, if I remember correctly, the information broker, he's not evil in Bakano.
Right, right, right.
He's helping one character find her missing brother, and they deal in secrets. It's like, okay, I'll tell you this, you tell me something else in return.
Right, it's their currency. So yeah, I guess so. Isaiah or Isaiah. So, I know you don't like it when I say
No,
Isaiah.
whatever you want is fine.
But yeah, so he seems like a little perturbed, like at the Black Rider, like no one told you to do that. I guess you're
Right.
going above and beyond your job these days. He kind of like is being a little snarky about it.
Yeah, he definitely seems annoyed. He's like, since when did you become a superhero? Like.
Yeah, he says, when did you become a defender of the innocent?
Right. And but actually, if you want to look at this from another perspective, the next thing we find out about Rio is that she has kind of turned her perspective around, and she is kind of dealing with her life and her problems in a more healthy way. So, another way to look at this is kind of like Isaiah is like the jigsaw killer from Saw.
Right, and I don't really like that narrative. I felt like the episode was kind of trying to tell us like, oh, look, all this good came from what Isaiah did, but I just don't think there's any justification for what he did. So, I mean, I'm glad that she has the new found perspective and, that her life is going to be better because of it, but I obviously feel like he went about it in the wrong way. I don't really even think that was his intention. It was just a side effect of what he did.
Right, right. Yeah, it's hard to say that that's what he was going for. It certainly, from his actions, doesn't seem to be, but I think, it can definitely be your opinion, and that's what he was going for, if you want to think of it that way.
Right.
Okay, so that kind of wraps up that story, and then we kind of see another scene where Mikado and Kita are walking home from school, I guess, and they see a little public spat from where they're standing. They see people below them having a little altercation.
Right. Yeah. So Seiji Yagami and
The boy who wants out of class.
right, and the shy glasses girl. They're having a bit of an argument. She's asking, why is he leaving school, and she seems to be upset about it.
Right, I think she asks something about, like, what about Mika?
Right.
And he's like, just leave me alone, it's not your business.
Yep, and then our two protagonist characters come along and see that happening, and they yell down and say like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And she just kind of looks up and she looks very flustered and she just bows and then she runs off to try to catch up with 30-year-old man who's leaving school.
So, actually, this is a telling scene because Kita speaks up and gets involved in something that, in a public problem that's not really his issue, which is very, like, not un-Japanese of him, and I think speaks a lot to the quality of his character in that, he will get involved to help someone even if there's nothing at stake for him, because he's just that kind of guy.
Right, yeah, he has some good traits under all of his bad jokes and snarky attitude.
Right. And that's kind of the last. I think that's the last thing that happens. Roll credits, and then so we learned a little bit more about. We learned a lot about Isaiah. We learned a little bit more about the black biker. We saw her like leaving home with some doctor next to her.
Yeah, this guy with glasses and a lab coat. It looks like
Right.
the scientist type.
And we know that apparently she's for hire because Isaiah paid her to rescue and deliver the
Right.
kid girl.
As far as we know, she's strictly like a transporter, someone who just moves people for paying customers.
Right. So Oh, and then we also got a brief glimpse of Shizuo shaking someone down in this episode, and
That's true. Yep.
we see him toss the vending machine in the air, which is the same vending machine the character saw in episode one.
Right. And he seems to be, yeah, shaking him down for money. The guy owes Shizuo money and doesn't have it.
Well, he doesn't owe Shizuo money. He owes some crime family money, and Shizuo is apparently their enforcer
Oh,
and is
okay.
going to collect. But yeah, we don't learn too much about him other than that. But yeah, I thought episode two is pretty good. I mean, it's kind of like the continuation of the first one. It's very much like introductory.
Yeah, it's good because it overlaps the events of the first episode and fills in all the information that was missing from the first episode, so it makes it complete.
Right, and we sort of get the entire story arc of Rio, the kidnapped girl, and she has a nice little succinct, interesting story that they use to sort of give you a deeper introduction into the qualities of the other characters.
Mm. Yeah, so this episode had like this had a really strong theme of like everyone has their own story and their own secrets, um, and it seems like this theme is like likely to come up over and over again, and it's almost kind of like parallels how they tell the story because like the storytelling in Durarara is like it's kind of hectic and confusing until you dive into like one particular person's situation, and then it gives you like a broader context. So I think that's kind of the message they were going for overall with this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it, especially on the rewatch. I feel like I picked up a lot of stuff I hadn't noticed the first time.
Yeah, me too. I actually watched this episode a couple times because we were going to we were going to record this rather earlier, but so I just wanted to recap, so I rewatched it, and yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to episode three. I think it sounds good. So, we did get a couple listeners on episode one. We posted this on Reddit and then on your YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And it's up on the podcast app for iPhone. And we got a couple listeners. We've got 2 followers on Twitter. Whoa!
Woo!
But no Twitter comments, which is fine. So next week, everybody, if you would watch episode 3, send us a tweet. You could be the very first person we ever shout out. And
That
we'll read your full comment, and then we'll talk about your comment. It'll be great.
right. What an honor it would be for that person.
I'm excited for them just thinking about it.
I know. I'm jealous actually. I wish I wasn't part of this so that I could be part of it. If you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
you know what, Brian? If you want to fire me just so that I can watch the show on Twitter, that would be great.
We'll talk later.
So yeah, hit us up on Twitter. Check out Brian's YouTube channel.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is Great Figure Hoarder, all one word. You can just search that in YouTube and you'll find it. And also, our podcast is up on iTunes, so if you just want to search for it through iTunes, you can do that as well.
Yeah, you can give us 5 stars, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah, 5, 6, whatever.
All right, so yeah, it was. I had a great time, Brian. I'll talk to you again.
Okay, see y'all next episode. Take it easy.
Yeah, have a good one.